and the St. Petersburg Police Department. Here with me today are FDLE Deputy Commissioner Shane Pollard and Tampa FDLE Special Agent in Charge Mark Brutinel. This Pinellas County drug-based trafficking organization has operated here since at least, and it's going back longer than that, but we're going to say for the purposes of this discussion today, at least since January of 2023. During this year, the organization has acquired and distributed in Pinellas County and throughout the Tampa Bay area approximately 400 kilograms of cocaine and 50 kilograms of fentanyl and over 20 pounds of methamphetamine. The investigation involved the use of court-authorized wiretaps and other forms of electronic surveillance. And I want to recognize the Pinellas Pasco State Attorney's Office under State Attorney Bruce Bartlett, as they've been an integral partner in this investigation. We could not have done what we were able to accomplish here without their participation and assistance. We identified throughout the course of this investigation about 30 people, mainly in Pinellas County and mainly in St. Petersburg, who are part of this drug conspiracy that really put huge amounts of illegal drugs on the streets of our county. We arrested 24 people yesterday and searched 7 locations around St. Petersburg that resulted in the seizure of about 12 kilograms of cocaine and 3 kilograms of fentanyl. So for the perspective of people who are not used to dealing with metric drug weights, a kilogram of cocaine is 2.2 pounds. So this seizure was about 26.5 pounds of cocaine and 6.5 pounds of fentanyl yesterday alone. Think about that pound of sugar that's sitting in your kitchen pantry. And this is 33 of those 1 pound bags. But this is poison that kills people. This isn't sugar. A kilo of cocaine wholesale on the streets of Pinellas County goes for about $17,000, and a kilo of fentanyl goes for about $35,000, making the wholesale value, and this is again the wholesale value of what we seized yesterday, about $309,000. If you value it at the way that it would be sold on the streets of Pinellas County, which is in user doses at street level, the value of it well exceeds $1 million. We also seized yesterday $237,000 in cash from this drug trafficking organization. Now, what we've been able to establish is that the cocaine and fentanyl came across the wide open Mexican border from sources of supply in Mexico who we have identified through this investigation. The drugs went from Texas to Pinellas County or other places like Atlanta and Charlotte, North Carolina, where couriers from Pinellas County would go to pick up the drugs and then bring them back here. Our investigation began in January of this year when we received information that Jacob Land was selling drugs from his business. And it's a business out off of Gandy Boulevard called Star Status Inc. And that's at 10387 Gandy Boulevard, Suite 111. Our detectives began investigating Land and through various investigative methods confirmed that Land was selling cocaine and fentanyl from his business and at his residence located at 261 Lincoln Circle, apartment 3204 in St. Petersburg. And what we were able to find out and determine through the course of the investigation is that Land was getting cocaine and fentanyl from various sources of supply, including Aleem Coley and Oswald Castillo. We identified Desmond Hargrove as a cocaine and fentanyl distributor, and Hargrove owns a business right next door to Land's business in the same shopping center out off of Gandy Boulevard. An undercover detective from the sheriff's office was introduced to Hargrove, and during the course of that relationship, if you will, he purchased several ounces of fentanyl directly from Desmond Hargrove. So the undercover detective made several buys hand-to-hand with ounces of fentanyl from Hargrove. Many of the people that you see, and if you put up the screen here with all the people on it. So most of the people that you see here, they're either distributors, but many of these people that you see behind me here are people that were getting and selling cocaine on the streets. So the people we'll talk about here and we have that are the main sources of supply, but these would be the mid-level traffickers that were actually putting it on the street to the people that were buying it for personal use. Many of these people were buying ounces, quarter kilograms, and half kilograms of cocaine and fentanyl. One of the people Land was selling cocaine to is and I'm going to mispronounce the name, but it's Darijan, D-A-R-I-G-A-N, Mizik. And we stopped him a couple months ago as he was leaving the Land's tattoo shop out there off of Gandy. We seized a 1/4 kilogram of cocaine, 50 grams of crack cocaine, and a gun. He's currently in the Pinellas County Jail. In addition to introducing an undercover detective to Hargrove, we were also able to introduce an undercover detective to Land himself. The detective has purchased about 1.5 kilograms of cocaine. So all of these drugs that were purchased hand-to-hand is in addition to what we seized yesterday. And the hand-to-hands were about 1.5 kilograms of cocaine directly from Land at the tattoo shop in various amounts over a several-month period. So after we, through the undercover investigation, were able to develop and realize the magnitude of the investigation, we obtained court-issued wiretap orders for various phones belonging to Land, Coley, and others. The wiretaps were in place for about the last 2 months. And through these wiretaps, we were able to identify Justin Richardson as a source of supply of cocaine to Coley. So the dope, the cocaine, the fentanyl, was going from Richardson and others to Coley and then to Land, and then it was going down more to the street level distributors and street level consumers of all these drugs. So our plan yesterday was to begin very early in the morning, and we had several search warrants for these locations. And as it related to Desmond Hargrove, he pretty much stays at his business. He has a place down in South St. Pete with his mother where he also stays, but he pretty much lives there at the business. And our plan was to serve that search warrant yesterday morning and arrest Hargrove at the business, which is next to Land's business out there off of Gandy. However, Hargrove left his business unexpectedly at about 6 o'clock a.m. yesterday morning. We conducted a traffic stop on the vehicle that was being operated by Hargrove at 4th Street and 85th Avenue North. After initially stopping, Hargrove fled from the traffic stop westbound on 85th Avenue. He jumped a curb and ran over a grass area to get away. I was there. I was present at the traffic stop when he fled. He went westbound on 85th Avenue and he struck a parked car that was parked on the north side of 85th Avenue. He was probably doing, as he was going westbound on 85th Avenue, he was probably doing about 100 miles an hour. Hargrove crashed, and when he hit that car, he drove that car that he hit probably about 30 yards up into the front yard of a residence on the north side of 85th Avenue. And he hit so forcefully and he was driving so fast that that car cracked the front concrete wall of the house and drove the car into a bedroom. Fortunately, the resident of the home's 5-year-old son, whose bedroom that is, was not there, and nobody was hurt other than Hargrove. Hargrove's in the hospital. He's got a broken leg, some other injuries, and when he's released from the hospital, he will be transported to the Pinellas County Jail. Justin Richardson, as I mentioned, is a main source of supply for this organization, and his partner, Jose Ramirez from Tampa, obtained these kilograms of cocaine and fentanyl from 2 primary sources of supply in Mexico, and they used couriers, including Talisha Wooten, who you see here on the screen behind me, to deliver the cocaine to Coley and others. So again, it's going from Richardson and from Ramirez as they're getting it out of Mexico, and it's coming here to Pinellas. Sometimes it's going to Charlotte and they got to go get it. Sometimes it's going to Atlanta and they got to go get it. And then they've got to push it down, and they use couriers to do that. And as I said, one of those people was Talisha Wooten, and we were able to establish throughout the course of the investigation that Talisha Wooten personally delivered 55 kilograms of cocaine to Coley and others, and she collected cash from the people that she delivered these 55 kilos of cocaine to just over the last 3 months. So she personally delivered 55 kilos of cocaine in the last 3 months. And it's from Wooten's home at 4411 First Avenue North in St. Petersburg yesterday that we seized the $237,000 in cash. Wooten previously served 16 years in the Florida Department of Corrections for murder. The money obtained by the local couriers from these street drug dealers was then delivered to the Mexican sources couriers who would pick it up and send this money back to Mexico. One of the Mexican sources couriers is Vivian Galindo, who drove up here from Miami yesterday to pick up $150,000, and we arrested her in the process of making the money pickup yesterday. In addition to all the drugs and money, we also seized several guns and ammunition as a result of the searches yesterday. So I'm going to show you some of the photos now from what we were able to seize yesterday. Put these up here. This first photo is from Wooten's house, and this is a suitcase that had multiple kilograms of cocaine in it. When you open it up, it stinks like gasoline because they soak the kilos in gasoline to disguise the smell of it. But each one of those kilos, again, is 2.2 pounds. And that is part of a 20 kilogram delivery that Wooten had received probably about a week ago, and they had put about half of it on the street when we were able to seize it yesterday. Go ahead to the next one. And so this is some of the street level dope that they had packaged. Again, these are ounces of cocaine. Go ahead. You can see here, and this is also, and Wooten, again, she had done 16 years for murder in the Florida Department of Corrections, and she had this handgun. So as you'll see when you see all of the charges that are over here to my right on these boards, and we'll give you all copies of this. This is what these people have been charged with. So not only was she charged with trafficking in fentanyl and trafficking in cocaine, is armed trafficking and being a felon in possession of a firearm. So she had all this cocaine, she had this gun, and she had all this ammunition in her house as well. Go ahead. And again, $237,000. A lot of it was there. It was in a bag. She had it banded, put it in plastic bags. And there's also a lot of cash sitting there, just wads of cash that she hadn't had a chance to process yet. And you can see all the bands of it. More drugs that were seized. Some of it's crack cocaine. At Coley's residence on 17th Avenue South, when we went in there, he had been cooking, and that's what you do to the crack. To make crack cocaine, you reduce it to cocaine base. You got to take the impurities out, and they cook it on the stove. When we walked in there, there was all kinds of cooking going on the stove. So he was also converting some of that powder cocaine to crack and selling crack cocaine as well. You can see just more drugs here. The other thing we found at Coley's house was I think it was about 20 pounds of marijuana, so a lot of marijuana in there as well. Go ahead. And again, more guns. And just more examples of the drugs. Go ahead. Anything? Okay. So one of the really, I think a lot of things about this case that are disturbing, and some of it, though, has to do with three of the main players in this thing. And the disturbing part is the drug traffickers have in putting all this out on the street. They get arrested, they go to jail, they put it out, they do more time, and it's just this revolving door in and out of the system. They go to prison, they get out, they go right out and engage in drug trafficking again. And in the case of Justin Richardson, while they're in prison, not only do they not get on the right side of it, not only do they not rehabilitate, but they also develop new sources of supply so that when they are either in prison or when they get out, they can just keep doing what they're doing. So when Richardson was in federal prison, that's when he developed this source of supply in Mexico. So these Mexican sources that Richardson and Ramirez have been obtaining cocaine from and obtaining fentanyl from are people that Justin Richardson met when he was at Coleman up in Sumter County in the U.S. Bureau of Prisons in the federal prison system. That's where he met these people. Now, when you look at Justin Richardson, and as I said, what's troubling about this is that he was first arrested on federal drug charges in 2004 and sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. After an early release, okay, so hear me, after an early release, Richardson was again arrested on federal cocaine trafficking charges in 2010 and sentenced to 11 years in federal prison. You know, so what happened to, a judge makes a decision, you sentence somebody to prison, and actually do the time the judge sentences them to instead of keep letting these people out early. That's one of the things we have here in the state of Florida is you got to do 85% of your sentence. But they keep letting these people out early, and they let him out early again in 2010, so he gets 11 years. And he gets another early release from those charges. And after he's early released again, in 2017, he's again arrested on cocaine trafficking charges, and during which they seized $1.4 million from him in 2017. Richardson in 2017 was sentenced to 9 years in federal prison, and about 2 months ago, when he sentenced to this 9 years in 2017, about 2 months ago, the U.S. Bureau of Prisons released Justin Richardson from the federal prison to a halfway house in Tampa. And while he's in federal custody at the Tampa halfway house, he was allowed to leave during the day, and we've observed him through surveillance making kilogram cocaine deliveries and picking up money from people to whom he sold the cocaine. So here's a guy that's an inmate in the federal prison system. While he's in prison, he's running this, coordinating this drug distribution activities. And he went to the halfway house 2 months ago. He's right back actively on the street delivering kilos of cocaine and picking up money and peddling his poison all over the streets of Pinellas County. So if you want to sum it up, Justin Richardson has been in and out of federal prison for the last 18 years on federal drug charges involving hundreds of kilos of cocaine. And when he gets, again, released to a halfway house in Tampa 2 months ago, he's right back at it again, selling kilos of fentanyl and cocaine on the street. So I guess so much for getting the message and so much for rehabilitation. But hopefully a minimum mandatory 25-year sentence, this time in the Florida Department of Corrections, will keep Justin Richardson off the streets of our county. And then in addition to Richardson, Jose Ramirez, who's Richardson's partner, he also has an extensive drug trafficking history, and he is on supervised release for his federal charges and from the federal prison system. He's on supervised release until 2025. Then we look at Aleem Coley. He's the one that has the house down there on 17th Street and 17th Avenue South in St. Pete. He's the one that was cooking the crack, and we got 2 kilos of cocaine yesterday out of his house, is that he has a lengthy criminal history for drug trafficking, and he was just released from federal prison in May of 2023. So just in May of this year, he gets out, and he's right back at it again. And he is on supervised release until 2027. So these people who are constant recidivists are a big problem. The system is not working in that regard. And you see 3 classic examples of it today. And as you can see with all of these individuals, and we'll give you copies, every single one of these people has extensive criminal histories that just goes on and on. Now, before I wrap up here, I just want to talk a little bit about fentanyl and reiterate to everyone that fentanyl really has caused the worst drug epidemic in the history of our country. People are dying, and they're dying left and right from fentanyl because of its potency. Fentanyl is 100 times more potent than morphine, 50 times more potent than heroin, and we know that it's caused the deaths of thousands, if not tens of thousands of people in this country. So think about the 3 kilograms, okay, the 6.6 pounds, the 3 kilograms of fentanyl that we seized just yesterday from the one location. And we seized fentanyl from other locations yesterday, but just think about the 3 kilos, just those 3 kilos, not the fentanyl we made purchases of and everything else. Just those 3 kilos that we seized yesterday from that one house, according to the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration calculations, has the potential to kill 1.5 million people. A kilo has the potential to kill up to 500,000 people because it takes such a minuscule amount of fentanyl to kill somebody. There's about 1 million people that live in Pinellas County. And those 3 kilos yesterday could have killed every man, woman, and child in Pinellas County, and time and a half. That's a lot of dope for these people to put on the streets. Thankfully, in the last couple of years, because of the epidemic, the Florida legislature and the governor have acted, and these people who are charged in this case, that involves the fentanyl and involves the fentanyl conspiracy, each one of them are looking at 25-year minimum mandatories in Florida state prison system because of their activities. And I hope while the federal system has not kept Richardson and Ramirez and Coley from getting in, getting out, getting in, getting out, and doing the same thing, I hope that the state prison system will do that and get these people off the jail and get them in jail and off the streets and keep them in place for the next 25 years. Now, when you look at the problem that we have, and it is sad, is that the supply of drugs today is as high as it's been in the last several decades. And one of the ways that we look at this is to look at the prices. And when we look at 1980, 1990s, and those were as they call them, the cocaine cowboy era, and it's all about supply and demand. And as the demand is high and the supply is there, and when the supply is really high, the prices go down because there's a lot of it out there, but people want it because they're addicted to it. So in the 1980s, cocaine was about $600 to $800 an ounce, and a kilogram of cocaine was about $16,000 to $18,000 on the street. When you get into the later 90s, 2000s, an ounce of cocaine was going for about $1,400 and a kilo of cocaine about $35,000. But now it's right back down again, and it's back to 1980s pricing when we had all of the cocaine wars, all of the cocaine cowboy era. And so what it shows, and it's because of the porous border and because of the inability to stop it from coming in, that we just see this tremendous amount of drugs that are on the streets, not just in Pinellas County, not just in the state of Florida, but around the country. So we got a problem, and people are dying from it and dying from it at the hands of these people that are out there peddling this poison. So law enforcement can't stop this because of the reasons I just said, but we will continue to do everything we can to hold these people accountable for these illegal actions. We'll have a summary of all the charges for these people that are on the board, all their criminal histories. We'll provide that to you. And you'll get a copy of all these photos, and the packet that I put up here will provide. I'll take some questions, but before I do that, I want to turn it over to Shane Pollard from FDLE for any remarks that he wants to make. Shane?
Thank you, Sheriff. Good afternoon. I'm Deputy Commissioner Shane Pollard with FDLE, and it's a privilege to stand beside Sheriff Gualtieri today and also Special Agent in Charge Mark Brutnell. This is one of several investigations being investigated statewide using SAFE grant funds. And this case is exactly the kind Governor DeSantis had in mind when he signed the SAFE legislation into law. SAFE is short for State Assistance for Fentanyl Eradication. The program provides money for law enforcement agencies and drug trafficking investigations. Funds can be used for training, overtime, travel, or investigative operations. Cases involving drug trafficking organizations can be very expensive, even cost prohibitive. It's easier to arrest the low-level street dealer, but it's much more time-consuming, dangerous, and costly to investigate an entire drug trafficking organization. SAFE grant funds make these cases possible for all agencies in our state. And never has there been a time when this program has been needed more. Across Florida, drugs kill thousands of Floridians each year, and fentanyl continues to be the #1 drug killer, followed by cocaine. Cases like this matter. Cases like this make our communities safer, and cases like this save lives. We're grateful to our dedicated law enforcement officers like Sheriff Gualtieri and his deputies here at his agency, and like Special Agent in Charge Mark Brutnell and our agents at FDLE. Their hard work in this case is an example of how they make Florida streets safer. These investigators are tackling this crisis head on, and they're improving the lives of all Floridians. Before I close, I encourage all law enforcement agencies to take advantage of this SAFE grant funding. Information on how to apply for that funding is available on FDLE's website. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
Sheriff, could you just touch on, reiterate just how delicate this operation was? I mean, 24 arrests, just how widespread?
Yeah, so it took a tremendous amount of work by a whole lot of people. I mean, the detectives in our narcotics division and people across the agencies have worked very, very hard all year and longer, really on this. In the last couple months especially, people were just working literally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And in the last couple of days, and the planning and then putting this together yesterday. So a lot of logistics, a lot of work, a lot of effort. And I know some of you, I heard from our PIO people, some of you yesterday were a little not so happy because we weren't giving you information, but we couldn't give you information because this thing was unfolding throughout the whole day. We started at about 4 o'clock yesterday morning and really didn't stop until about 7 o'clock last night. And it was really important and one of the great successes of this case, this doesn't happen very often when you get these type of massive roundups. Usually when you do these roundups is you set out to arrest a certain number of people. And if you get about half, as you're looking to get these people in custody, if you get about half and you go back in history and you look at these boards that we put up, okay, that we do in other agencies, usually they'll show you they got about half, is we got every single one of them. So we got 100% of the people that we sought to arrest yesterday. And a lot of it was because of that coordination, because of the logistics, and not putting information out there. So that's the only reason why we couldn't get it out yesterday, because it was unfolding throughout the day. And as all those steps were happening, and then we had couriers showing up to get money. We had all kinds of things that were in the works. And it wasn't because we didn't want to put it out there, but it's because we needed to be successful. And then we could come here today and show you what we did. Anybody, any other questions anybody have?
About how many undercover detectives did you have working at the same time?
I'm not going to give you that information. A lot. Everybody should think every time they do a drug deal that they're dealing with an undercover cop. Think twice about it. So in other words, don't do it, because you're going to go to prison for a long time. Anybody have any of the other questions?
Was Hargrove the only person arrested or found at his place, and then you guys in the chase, or what?
Yeah, no, it's, and again, kind of to her question is that we put a lot of time, effort into the logistics of this thing to do it as safely as we possibly can. We used our SWAT team to execute a couple of the search warrants. We had search teams and arrest teams for all these other places. And we had a plan in place, and some of these people have kids and all, and making sure that either significant others, kids that weren't going to be in the middle of it when we did it. And you have the best laid plans, but you always got to expect the unexpected. And when you think somebody's going to do one thing, they do another. But pretty much yesterday, this is why we had such great success with this thing, is that because of all the work and because of the planning that went into it, the only real zigzag was Hargrove when he got up for whatever reason and left at 6 o'clock in the morning. So, and that resulted in, because we don't want that situation. That's just not good. It's not safe. And he, okay, not us, but Hargrove is the one that put people in harm's way. He's the one that caused that by fleeing from the cops. I mean, look at his criminal history, and he's a drug dealer. He's a fentanyl dealer and a cocaine peddler, and he could care less. That business that he has out there, and same thing with Land's business, the tattoo shop, they're not real businesses, they're fronts. They don't do any real business. All they do is sell dope out of them. And he's the one that decided to get up and leave and run from us.
And did he have anything on him or anything in the car, or did he just run because he knew what y'all were after?
Yeah, we haven't been able to talk to him, so I really don't know, other than he's been around, and I don't know what he saw that caused him to run, and I don't know is the answer. But and there was that car parked on the north side, and that car that was parked on the north side of the street was driven by a 17-year-old high school student. And she was getting ready to come out and go to school. And, if it had been a little bit different in time and she had been coming out, or she was sitting in that car getting ready to go, when he hit that car, there's speed bumps along 85th, and there were sparks flying because he was hitting that so fast. And when you hit those speed bumps and the car's bottoming out, man, I don't even want to think about what would have happened if two things. One is that she had been sitting in that car, or that 5-year-old boy had been in his room when that car went into that bedroom. And we're very fortunate. He's very fortunate. He's not looking at a murder charge. But that's what we try and avoid. And we took great steps to avoid that yesterday, and had great success in the safety of this operation. But sometimes stupid people do stupid things, and he's a stupid person who did stupid stuff. Anybody else got anything? Good. All right, we appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.